How are we doing, everybody? Welcome to Russell Heritage Golf. Today joined by George. We're continuing the theme that we've been talking about recently on the channel, which has been very much this sort of impact area. Here we're getting closer and closer to the season, sort of. Doesn't feel like it today. It's just storm. Well, I say stormy. It's just blowing a gale and freezing cold. But we must carry on. And, you know, we are getting closer and closer to the season. And it gets, for us, it makes it more relatable that we've been very restricted in terms of getting on the golf course. Whilst moving forward now, we're going to have much more time to be able to talk about things in terms of how to play. So your priority really is obviously to concentrate very much just on impact and feelings. And that's basically been the thing. So we will always articulate information for people. So I think that one of the things that you would agree upon as well, which again we're going to try and talk about on the channel, would be, should we say, trying to use, you know, what is known as like motor imagery, yeah? Which essentially means, for those who aren't familiar, it's kind of like mirror imaging stuff at home. And as I've kind of muted a couple of times in a couple of videos, and we'll go into it in more detail, it has just as strong a mechanism of creating neural pathways as much as physical practice does. The problem that you do have is for golfers that don't understand the golf swing, and there's almost missing pieces to the puzzle, which is where we still need to do articulated videos as much as anything else. Anyway, today the feeling coming in towards this hit, if you kind of show us sort of like a pre-impact area, is, yeah, the feeling is that you're basically chest and hands, as the kind of title of the video suggested. So when you hit the golf ball, you want to feel like your chest is leading, followed by the hands. Now, what this essentially means is that depending on the degree of rotation, which obviously with George, somebody who's very mobile, will be exceeding by a large, pronounced amount compared to your average amateur, but you still want to do it to some degree, is that you basically want to feel that the chest is pointing down, kind of towards your left ankle. Now, the thing that stops you coming from over the top with this, sorry George, if you show me that little pre-impact area again, is that you need to hold onto the wrist angles. So essentially, if George kind of let the angulation go on the back of the right wrist, for example, then the club would end up swinging out to him. So yeah, and then they turn the body. Now, the problem that you got in the golf swing is if we come back again a little bit and then release the hands again slowly, but if he kind of stopped turning and backed up with his body, that would work. Do you know what I mean? So that's kind of the fine line in the golf swing, is that, you know, to be able to get a decent contact on the back of the ball, the hands need to lead. So the hands need to be in front of the club head coming in towards the impact area. And basically you want to swing the club obviously on plane, which we've been talking about in recent videos as well. But the feeling is, I think, that you want to keep working on this idea of going chest first, then hands, chest then hands, chest then hands, and that's the kind of feeling and what you want to be basically telling yourself, because it's basically just going to help you keep the club working on plane, keep the club face nice and square coming in towards that hit. And here we're kind of forced upon the idea of it anyway. The driving range, the wind has been consistently coming into now for like the last 3 weeks. So it's kind of like funny as you're hitting shots trying to get ready for the season that you kind of feel like you're trying to lower and lower and lower the trajectory. But it's not a bad feeling for those of you that are obviously hitting the ball considerably too high, feel like you're too flippy in that hit. Then basically what you want to be doing is exaggerating that kind of sensation of the chest pointing as much down and left as you possibly can. So if you kind of show us that pre-impact again, yeah, and then go as much as you can, and then just try and hold on to the angles of the wrist as much as you can. And that essentially is going to be the feeling. And we've seen these sort of things before. We've talked about it like the old Noren practice drill, didn't we? You know, Noren would do that sort of rehearsal swing, which was completely exaggerated. Now you've got to remember that, you know, similar videos that I've done recently where we've talked about footwork. If you keep your feet on the ground, so don't allow your right heel to lift, that's going to restrict your motion dramatically. Do you know what I mean? So it's absolutely fine if you're somebody to be lighter on your toes. So if you kind of lift your right heel up and let the weight move more into, yeah, exactly. So the more that you can get lighter on your feet and learn how to use the ground and work on your balance, then you're going to find these sort of movements much, much easier. So I think the feeling is that you're trying to hit the ball much lower coming in towards, you know, as a little bit of a practice. Yeah, nice shot. But even if you found that you started to work on this and you felt that it lowered the trajectory too much, which is a possible concern, the reason for that would probably be because you're losing the angles of the wrist for one. So if you just show us that again, so if you show us a good chest rotational movement, but if you lose the angles a bit, that would make you come down a little out to in, which would potentially lower the trajectory potentially, as opposed to holding on the angles would kind of shallow out the hit a little bit. But it's a plan B as well. You know, when things aren't going great on the golf course, you need to have that ability to eliminate the left-hand side. And the only way that you're going to have the ability to eliminate the left-hand side of the golf course is to swing the handle left, which George would demonstrate now, you know. So as we're swinging down, you want that handle moving left, and you want to feel like you're keeping that club face, should we say, very resistant to closing, right? And, you know, that is basically your kind of probably plan A, but most definitely a shot that you want to exist in the bag as a plan B. Now, you can only work the handle left if you rotate and rotate the chest. And what I'm trying to say is that that sort of fear of swinging out to in is going to be resolved by holding on to the angles of the wrists, which is why it's chest, then hands. If I can jump in with my mitts on, I'm not taking them, well, I'll have to. It's very much, you know, you can start to do rehearsal swings, you know, like this, where you just feel a little bit of a kind of shimmy in terms of the direction and trying to hold on to these sort of angles, and practice it with the short shots as well. You know, even whether you did go down the range similar to what I'm doing here, we've got a 6-iron and you're just almost trying to practice with a couple of little low shots, because it's important that you can possess the ability to do these different types of shots, because it does, if you go into the trees or if you need a feeling of trying to hit it lower, that's basically what you want to be working upon. So hopefully you enjoyed the video. Hopefully it's kind of just something else which will just, if there's some of you that feel like you were getting a little out to in, hopefully this video would resonate with you quite strongly. Chest and hands is definitely a really nice feeling for those that haven't been unlocking that sort of avenue previously. Work on it. Hopefully, as of maybe not next week, but the following week, we'll be out on the golf course. So drop in that comments box below things that you would like to see on the channel. Catch up with you soon.